I didn't need a dossier to understand the hierarchy of this place. 40 years of dissecting lies had trained me to recognize the scent of institutional cowardice. I climbed the rattling iron stairs to the overseer's office while the steam was still settling below. Mr. Lloyd was exactly what I expected, a man built not from iron, but from compromise. His clothes were too clean for the factory floor, yet never quite clean enough for respectability. Grease lingered in the seams, beneath the nails, in the corners of his cuffs, evidence of a man who had once worked with his hands, and now only pretended to. He moved in small, restless gestures, fingers twitching, eyes shifting, always calculating which direction the pressure was coming from. A mechanic who no longer understood machines, only consequences. It took less than 5 minutes to take him apart. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten him. I presented the law. The Protection and Apprenticeship Act landed on his desk with a soft, deliberate weight. My finger found the relevant passage. Minor wards, I said, tapping the page, under the age of 21. He's only 18, Lloyd, I continued, my voice as cold as the frost on the northern tundras. Legally, a child of the state. And you have him working double shifts on high-pressure regulators without a certified license. I let the words settle. That isn't just a labor violation. Under the King's decree, it borders on sabotage. I reached into the inner pocket of my coat and drew out a heavy, cream-colored parchment. The gold seal caught the light as I placed it on his desk. The space for the name remained blank. The boy has no kin in Oakhaven, Lloyd stammered, leaning back into his chair. I'm his legal guardian until his 21st winter. I've invested years in his training. Your effort is irrelevant, I said quietly. I did not sit. Men like Lloyd drew confidence from small comforts. In Oakhaven, I continued, a ward of the state is not an apprentice in the sense you imply. I smoothed the parchment once against the desk. You do not employ them. You are assigned them. Lloyd's jaw tightened. That isn't just a labor violation. Under the King's decree, it borders on sabotage. I reached into the inner pocket of my coat and drew out a heavy, cream-colored parchment. The gold seal caught the light as I placed it on his desk. The space for the name remained blank. The boy has no kin in Oakhaven, Lloyd stammered, leaning back into his chair. I'm his legal guardian until his 21st winter. I've invested years in his training. Your effort is irrelevant, I said quietly. I did not sit. Men like Lloyd drew confidence from small comforts. In Oakhaven, I continued, a ward of the state is not an apprentice in the sense you imply. I smoothed the parchment once against the desk. You do not employ them. You are assigned them. Lloyd's jaw tightened. The registry allocates miners to licensed facilities based on projected output, I said. You house them, you feed them, you extract value from them. A faint pause. In return, you are granted custodianship. I tapped the document once. Not ownership. His fingers began to twitch again, faster now.
I kept him alive,
Lloyd said.
Most of them don't last a year in the mills.
Yes, I replied. Most of them don't. Silence settled between us. Then, which is precisely why the Crown has taken an interest. Lloyd's eyes flicked to the seal.
He's not registered as a specialist,
he said carefully.
No certification, no papers beyond mill records.
Irrelevant. I stepped closer, just enough. The King's directive supersedes classification. My finger moved to the empty line. Certain individuals are to be removed from standard allocation and reassigned. A pause. Immediately. Lloyd exhaled slowly.
You'll take him.
I inclined my head. I will requisition him. The room felt smaller now.
And if I refuse?
He asked, though the question lacked conviction. I met his gaze. Then you will be in violation of 3 statutes. I raised a finger. Improper use of a minor ward. A second. Endangerment of Crown-regulated infrastructure. And finally, obstruction of a royal requisition. I let the list settle. Each carries a penalty sufficient to close this facility.
But again, I invested a lot in him.
Don't lie to me, Lloyd. It insults us both. I cut him off. I leaned over his desk, my shadow swallowing his workspace. I saw his boots, northern cowhide, worn through at the heel. He hasn't been here more than a season. Who did you buy him from? I watched the color drain from his face. The realization came quickly, too quickly for denial to hold.
His father,
Lloyd whispered, his eyes flicking toward the door as if the walls themselves might be listening.
a master smith, Northern Foundries, good hands, I'm told.
He swallowed.
Lungs gave out. Smoke took him before winter. The debts followed.
His fingers tightened together.
The boy was sent south 6 months ago, contract labour, to settle what was left.
A faint, helpless gesture toward the desk.
I didn't choose him. I just... Hold the paper.
Of course you do, I said. There was no accusation in my voice, only acknowledgement. I took the fountain pen from his desk and dipped it into the inkwell. The nib paused above the empty line for just a moment. His name, I said. Lloyd hesitated. Then,
Jan Carell.
the name settled into the room with a quiet weight. I wrote it carefully. Jan Carell. The ink spread cleanly across the parchment. 18, I said, as much to the document as to the man. Which places him under Crown protection under the new decree. I turned the parchment and slid it toward Lloyd. Sign as the current guardian. You relinquish custody to the Crown and transfer guardianship to my name. In return, you retain your license and receive compensation. My finger tapped the lower margin. 50 silver thalers. Lloyd stared at the document, then at the name, then at me. His hand trembled as he took the pen. The signature came out uneven. I waited until the ink settled before folding the parchment with precise, deliberate care. A contract closed, a life reassigned. I slipped the document back into my coat and left the office. Most of the men had already vanished into the fog of the east wing, their voices swallowed by distance and steam. Only the dying furnaces remained, casting long, restless shadows across the soot-stained walls. Jan was still there, bent over his workbench, shirtless, the leather apron clinging darkly to his frame. He was cleaning a set of heavy brass tools with slow, deliberate precision, each movement exact, almost ritualistic. Not out of habit, out of necessity. I stepped out from the shifting shadows of the steam pipes. The sound of my boots against the stone floor carried cleanly through the silence, measured, deliberate. Jan did not startle. Men like him rarely do, but I saw it. The slight tightening in his shoulders, the fraction of stillness before movement resumed. Not fear, recognition. He had already marked me as something that did not belong. A man who cleans his tools that carefully, I said, my voice low but clear through the fading hiss of the furnaces, usually understands that they are not separate from him. A faint pause. Only an extension. Jan turned. The wrench remained in his hand, held not loosely but with quiet readiness, not raised, not lowered. Under the unsteady gaslight, his eyes, pale, cold, sharpened by soot and fatigue, moved over me with unsettling efficiency. Coat, cane, hands. They lingered there for a fraction longer than necessary, clean of grease, marked with ink. He understood enough.
"I don't know you, sir,"
he said. His voice was low, roughened by sulphur and heat, but steady.
"And the shop is closed. If you're looking for the overseer, his office is at the top of the stairs."
I've already spoken to Mr. Lloyd, I replied. I took a step closer. Not enough to threaten, enough to remove doubt. The seal caught the light as I raised the document just slightly. In fact, I added, I've already resolved the matter of your employment. A brief pause. I am Professor Voron, I said, and I am here to discuss your future, Jan. Not the future of a mill hand, but of a man who was traded to settle another man's failure. The wrench did not move, but the muscles in Jan's jaw tightened, hardening beneath the soot. Your father was a master smith, wasn't he? I continued, circling him slowly, the measured tap of my cane marking each step. Only a man raised by one learns to listen to machines the way you do. A glance toward the furnace light, and men like that do not part with their sons, unless they have no other choice. You know nothing about him, Jan said. His voice was low, controlled, but there was pressure behind it. No, I agreed, but I know enough. I stopped in front of him. My gaze dropped, not to his face, but to the details others would ignore. The stitching on the apron, the wear on the tools, the small inconsistencies. You work beyond your assigned hours, I said. You take on repairs that aren't yours. A slight tilt of the head, and somehow things continue to function longer than they should. My eyes returned to his, which tells me you are not simply working off a debt. You are managing it. The flickering gaslight caught it, the brief, unguarded flash in his eyes. Not fear. Exposure. I had been precise enough. In the Queen's time, I said quietly, a man who stepped beyond his assigned role was punished for disobedience. A faint pause. Under the present sovereign, my gaze held his. He is reclassified. I let that settle. According to his usefulness. I did not reach for the warrant. I didn't need to. I have the authority to transfer you, I continued, or to leave you where you are. Silence stretched between us. Jan did not move, but his grip on the wrench shifted slightly. Not defensive, calculating.
What do you want?
He asked. The king is reopening the iron archives beneath the old palace, I said. The name lingered in the air, heavy, deliberate. A place where systems are studied. A slight tilt of the head, not mechanical ones. I stepped closer. I require a specialist, someone who understands tension, not force, limits. My gaze held his, someone who knows exactly how far a system can be pushed before it fails. I am offering you an apprenticeship. Jan's eyes shifted, not away, but inward, assembling the meaning piece by piece. When he spoke, his voice was quieter.
Interrogation,
he said. Not a question, a conclusion. His grip tightened once.
You want a man who can break something.
A fraction of a breath, without destroying it. I allowed myself the smallest inclination of the head. I want a man who understands how things hold together, I said, and what happens when they don't. I want a mechanic of the soul, I corrected, my voice cold and precise. A controlled environment, proper instruments, systems worthy of your attention, not this. I let the words settle between us, an entire world dismissed in a single breath. Jan's breathing shifted, barely, but enough.
Why me?
He asked. Because you didn't look at the gauges today, I said. You felt the system. I stepped closer, not to intimidate, but to remove distance. You understood that the failure wasn't in the numbers, but in the rhythm. That is not taught. My gaze dropped briefly to his hands. You have the hands of a surgeon. Then back to his eyes, and the discipline not to use them like a butcher. Silence stretched. I could see it now, not hesitation, but calculation. His eyes flicked, just once, toward the machines. Not the broken ones, the precise ones. Then to his hands, then back to me. This place, I said quietly, is not where you belong, and it will not hold you much longer. I let that settle without explanation. I have already spoken to Mr. Lloyd, I added. Your contract has been reassigned. I watched him carefully. No shock, no protest, only the slow alignment of facts.
So this isn't an offer?
Jan said at last. It is a direction, I replied, but not an unprofitable one. The silence stretched, filled only by the soft crackle of dying embers. Slowly, Jan lowered the wrench. The tension left his shoulders, not released but replaced by weight. He was no longer deciding, he was calculating. You will receive 7 silver thalers a month, I said. The number settled into the space between us. And your family's situation will be resolved. Quietly. Jan's breath caught, barely but enough. His grip on the wrench loosened by a fraction.
7,
he repeated, almost under his breath. Not disbelief, calculation. His eyes dropped for a moment, to the metal, to his hands, to something far beyond the walls of the mill. Then back to me. He did not ask again. He understood what such a sum meant. I reached into my coat and placed a wax-sealed envelope on the edge of his workbench. The seal bore no crest, only a clean, deliberate mark pressed deep into the wax. Dawn, I said. East Wing Intake Corridor, Service Gate 3. A measured tap of the cane against the stone. Present this to the guard. You will be escorted below, sub-level 4. My gaze held his for a moment longer. Do not be late. I turned before he could answer. The fog swallowed the far end of the workshop as I walked. I did not look back. There was no need. By morning he would be exactly where he was required to be. I stepped out into the night. The fog of the East Wing was a living thing, thick, metallic, tasting faintly of cold iron. It closed behind me at once, swallowing the workshop in a slow, indifferent embrace. High above, carved into the jagged cliffs at the heart of the capital, the old palace loomed against the sky. For 40 years, its underground levels stood closed. Tonight, it did not. It watched. I did not look back. I did not need to. Jan would still be standing where I had left him, not frozen, measuring. The dying furnace light would stretch his shadow across the brickwork, distorting it into something larger than the man himself. On the workbench, the sealed envelope would stand apart from everything else, clean, deliberate, out of place. He would not open it immediately. He would look at it, then at his hands. I had seen him study them before, hands shaped by resistance, by pressure, by the honest logic of steel, hands that understood how to correct failure. Now he would begin to understand something else, that the same precision could be applied differently. Not destruction, adjustment. The mathematics of his life had already aligned. Obligation, capacity, opportunity. There was no need for chains. The envelope contained only what was necessary, a location, a time, and an instruction that required no interpretation. Arrive at dawn. East Wing Intake Corridor, Service Gate 3. Present the seal. You will be escorted below, sub-level 4. Nothing more. Nothing less. I walked toward the palace, my steps steady against the damp stone. The iron key in my pocket shifted slightly with each movement, cold, precise, waiting. I had not offered him a choice, only a direction. And by morning, he would follow it. Behind me, somewhere in the depths of the mill, a single, measured movement would break the stillness, the sound of tools being gathered.